Wow. Until I get a second system up and running, and I'm no longer testing things and stuff, I'm going to be plagued with technical difficulties. My microphone, the Twitch app, the connection to, it's just a never-ending stream of crazy. Speaking of stream of crazy, there's this cartoon ape in a jungle telling you, we make games, and you can make games too. No joke. That's what we're promoting here. Excuse me. Our aim is to make games, and along the way, we tell you, yeah, you can do this too. So, yeah. Like I said, never-ending stream of technical problems. So, we are in a jungle, and this cartoon ape is telling you you can make games. This series we're doing with just chatting, using the category, is to say design chat, because it's worth talking about. Last time we said, there's some myths about what design is, what the designer's role is. These myths, we should dispel them immediately so you don't go down the wrong path. We've also been talking about things that design should focus on. Long story short, it's the player. All design is designing for people, and it starts and ends with the people. Along with that, just make sure you are always testing, and not just coming up with ideas, but actually testing those ideas. All right, this game down below that you're seeing is called Small Towers. It's made for chat. You can do it with chat commands. Go to town if you want to play, right? You can always do that. Meanwhile, what we've done previously, I will just gloss over it. We've looked at what is the minimum thing you would need if you wanted to make a game. What do you need to have in order to have a game? And like we said, the long story short is a player, but not just a player, but a player who's on your side because they understand the rules that you've set out for them. The rules of the game that they agree to is one of the requirements of the game. You're giving them some player control, not total control, but some player control. And part of the rules of the game is what they can control and what they can't. And they agree that they might win, they might lose. We went a little further and said there's an optional requirement that the game be replayable. It's not technically true, but if you want to share your game, we found out that, well, it needs to be replayable. And most players want to play and then play again, see if they can do better. We talked about how important the player is to just start playing. They need to know what they're getting into and be enticed to play. So there's a little bit of a promise to the player. Through the game, the designer is promising the player will have this experience, and the player says, okay, let's do it. If that contract is broken at all, they stop playing. And during their play, while they're playing, they're engaged with the game, and this player-game loop is something else we talked about. Their brain, the hands on the controller, The game itself, the monitor and the speakers, this creates a loop going from the player into the game back out to the player so they can figure out what to do next and so on. If any piece of that loop breaks, the loop breaks and they're no longer playing. Because one of the things we found out is if there is no player, there is no game. That's how important they are. We also talked about how players, when they begin to play a game, like the player designer contract might promote, hey, come play this game. They say, cool. And they begin to ask questions. Why? Because they are learning machines and they'll learn how to play the game better, but they start by saying, who am I? Where am I? What am I trying to do? In other words, what's the objective of the game? What do I have working for me? What do I have working against me? If we're taking a game like, I don't know, Doom, it's an old shooter. Say, who am I? Well, you're some space marine. Where am I? Well, you're in space. Or maybe you're in hell because it's demons and all kinds of crazy. What am I trying to do? Well, you're trying to shoot. Trying to shoot the demons and survive because you need to get to the next level. So you're trying to get to the next level is what it's about. What do I have working for me? Well, a lot of guns, some ammo, some medical packs and things you can pick up. What's working against me? Well, all those demons, right? And the things they shoot at you. And there's hazards like lava and stuff, and exploding barrels, and you get the idea. If there's something that's not going right in the design of your game, and you want to figure out what it is, you might be confused about where to look, because in total, games are big, complex systems. As you build it up over time with little small steps, you're going to wonder, where do I even look to find how I can improve this? Or I see something wrong, but how do I know what's the best approach to fix it? Well, it's always safe to go back to the player experience. Again, the player is our focus. And what we are designing is an experience for the player. It's what we promise them we can do. It's what we try to keep them doing. And they've agreed to this, so they're kind of on our side. They're learning what their role is in the game. And notice they say, who am I? Where am I? Because it's not a little token on a board game. It's not a digital representation of another character. It is them. When they agree to this contract and start playing and are engaged in the loop, they adopt the personality that is the player character. Same thing with an audience watching a movie. They kind of get absorbed with whoever the protagonist is, and they go through the same emotions that they do. Never fails that as soon as I start, the jungle gets wild and things go sideways. Anyway, these are things that we talked about. These are things we talked about because we also said, listen, this is what you need to keep in mind. This is what will help you when you get in trouble. Just put your frame in the right place. Your perspective should be focused on the player. Okay, fair enough. But we also talked about this. We said, okay, but what do we do? Last time we also talked about things you don't want to think about, things you don't want to do, which is like pretend you're telling people what to do or pretend that all the ideas are coming from you. There's a whole lot of pitfalls and myths about the game designer process and what a game designer does that we dispelled last time. But it's also helpful to talk about, well, what do we do, right? This design process is the steps that you perform and then you redo them. It is a cyclical process. You start back up at the top and keep going. Because what we're trying to do is improve and then improve and then improve some more. This is through repetition, where each time we repeat, we find new things to make the game better. This is the fancy word for this is iteration. Iteration means to repeat. That's all. So when we perform these steps and it gets to the bottom and said, okay, now go back to number 1, we're doing so with some new insight. That's what this says here. And the idea is we're going to improve over time. We're going to follow these steps. We're going to see what we can do. And there could be things that are wrong. It's okay. In fact, it's cool. We can even expect that there's going to be things that are wrong. There could be things that just could be better. You could put it that way. But it's kind of all the same thing. It's okay. Because one of the myths we dispelled was that you're supposed to be right on the first time. No. That you have the authority to just walk in, drop down the design, and walk out. No. Like, if you were tasked with getting everything right the first time, you'd fail most of the time. Like, there'd be a slim chance. You'd be lucky to get things right. Instead, we don't rely on that at all. Isn't it interesting? To say, no, you can expect to fail because part of our process is to test to see what's wrong, evaluate how it could be better, and then with that new insight, go back and start this process again to see how to do it better. Like, we expect to fail, and then we can make it better once we see how it failed and what went wrong. In fact, it leads to this thing. Because you know it's okay to fail, because you know there's a high probability that things might go terribly wrong, because you know that even if it's great, it can always be better. This whole process counts on the idea that improvement is always going to be available, which translates to go ahead and start. Like, beginning the game design process is totally safe because it will always improve. If you're worried about starting a game design, don't be. I mean, if you're worried about doing anything in the design process and you're worried about starting or getting it right the first time, well, those myths we dispelled tell you, no, that's not how you think about it. Just go for it because it will always improve. And the only way you can not improve is if you don't do it, if you don't start, if you don't keep going. Because this keeping going guarantees improvement. It guarantees improvement. It will always improve, which means it's safe. You just start. Go ahead and expect some ways in which it could be better, sure. But that doesn't mean it's failure and you should stop. It's quite the opposite. It means, oh goody, we found the thing that's wrong, and now we can improve with some new insight. Literally, finding the thing that are wrong helps you see how it can be better. It's freeing. It definitely encourages you to feel free. Because we can expect that we're going to improve no matter what. Meaning we could just start. And it's okay. Now, we definitely want to keep in mind the player. We definitely want to follow these steps. But let's feel free. If we were to say, okay, cool, what do we do? Well, step 1, find the player needs to address. Well, okay, what does the player need for our game? We did talk about that, actually. There's some basic needs. If we don't have a modest amount of player control, if we don't have a win or lose condition, if we don't have rules of the game that they can agree to, that's kind of a non-starter. It's not a game. Further, if we know we're going to include a player, that's probably good. We could have a game if we have all this. We can count on players to be learning machines. Okay, what else can we, research about what the player needs might be? Well, they need to start playing. They need to be promised something cool. Oh, okay, that's a tricky thing. Our game concept might need to start with, a promise of some cool gameplay, some cool, what are we doing? Well, they're going to ask these questions. Who am I? Where am I? We could start with that. Like, what would be cool to be a type of person or a job or something? Where am I? Maybe this is a cool place that we're at, What am I trying to do? Maybe it's about this. What am I trying to do, right? So the contract can relate to these answers for sure. And as long as we don't break this loop, I think they'll continue playing, but we need to probably get them to start playing. That's a need. Otherwise, we don't have a player, and then we don't have a game. So, yeah, actually, maybe this is like top of mind. If we are going to say, okay, step one, find the player needs to address. We're going to make a new game, and it's safe to start, so let's just start there. Let's find the player needs to address. Well, we just did a little bit of research and said, well, okay, we need a player. In fact, we need a player to say, let's go, right? We need a player. Fine, we'll find a player. But we kind of need to promise the player a gameplay experience, right? We need to give them an experience of some kind. Let's start small and simple, but because it's safe to do so, but we have to start, otherwise we're not going to get anywhere. But feel free, okay? Do we need to shoot for the moon and talk about like a big centuries-long quest that the player goes on to meet hundreds of people and NPCs and no, stop. We didn't stop. No. Back it off. If you're just learning this, let's start very, very simple. I mean, we could even go down to like a coin flip game, but maybe a little more than that. Player needs to address, well, the player experience, we want to give them an idea of what that is, right? A promise. We want to say, you get to be this type of person in this place doing this kind of thing. Ooh, okay. Maybe it's not a person, I don't know. But who am I is going to be one of their questions. We want to sort of include them in that. That should get them going. Cool. We also know that our modest player control is necessary. These are needs. We don't have these, we're screwed. So we kind of need all three of these. We need rules of the game, okay? We'll come up with those once we know what we're doing. That's okay. I think we're likely to change these as we go. That's fine. But we need some kind of win and lose result. Something the player is interested in doing where they could win or they could lose. Maybe even tie, who knows? But some kind of control about that so they could try and win. Okay. We don't have win or lose. We don't have a game. So let's start with that. I'm going to say the promise of the player has a character, a piece, a token, some player character, right? The player character would be the who am I answer, right? Who am I? Well, let's just give him a square to start with. I don't know what this is going to be. We can dress this up to be anything later. I don't know, right? But how do you win? How do you lose? Like, what are we talking about? What's the player control here? Well, if it is like 2D, like a square, I guess they could move, like, up, down, left, right. Sure. I mean, maybe they could move fast or, I don't know, spin. I'm not sure. I don't know. We need to keep it. I don't know how complicated we need to make it. I don't think it's necessary at all to do that. If there is some movement of this square that the player can control, I think we've kind of at least got the modest amount of player control, right? That part I think is okay if we have that. But we don't have a win or lose yet. Let's check this one off. We're okay there. But now let's try and get some kind of win or lose result. And this might begin to define the rules of the game, right? Actually, we already have. We said you can move up, down, left, right. Okay, that's some rules, but let's keep going. We need some win or lose state. Again, it's safe to start. That's fine. So let's start. In this way, we're saying, okay, there's a square. That's you, player. They say, who am I? And we say, you're this square. That's what we say. And they say, where am I? Well, not really sure yet. Actually, some 2D space, I guess. I suppose it's going to have to be 2D because they are 2D. By the way, if you're a nerd like me, there's an awesome classic book called Flatland about a square who journeys to the land of other dimensions. It was written by a mathematician, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, nerd stuff. It's called Flatland. It's a book. Yeah, I'm old. So the problem is, we don't know what the answer to the next question is. What are we trying to do? What is this gameplay? What is this promise, really? Hey, player, guess what? You get to be a square, and you can move up, down, left, right. Player's like, okay, but what am I trying to do? In fact, where am I is still an open question. Like, we need to do something, right? In fact, don't we need to do something that relates to the win-lose result? Yeah, let's keep going. These are the needs we're trying to address, and we're following the process here. Finding the needs to address. Okay. And find ideas to meet those needs. Well, we kind of started. We said, well, let's just say square and up, down, left, right. That's the player control stuff. But like, what other address? Well, we need to address the need of win. Can the player win? Well, so far there's nothing to win, really. Can we lose? No. We need to fix that, right? Because what am I trying to do actually relates to that win-lose condition for real. If they can move around, that's one thing. But how do you move to win? How do you move to lose? Or how do you fail to move correctly to win and therefore lose? That might be a better question. How do you move to win? Let's start with that one. Okay, if I'm a little square over here, okay, it's the player, and they can journey around and go from here or to here. Maybe they need to move around up, down, left, right to do things. Okay, fine. That sounds good, right? Well, they can get to another space. Could they just get to a space that is win? Like literally this space you can totally get into, and once you do, you win. In fact, that could be like the end of one level and we go on to the next level, right? You're trying to get to the next level, and this is how you do it. Like, this is win because maybe there's a whole series of levels, and after it all, you could, win the game. Along the way, you're winning levels. What am I trying to do actually could be, well, it's not terribly complicated, but you're trying to get to this square that we'll call win. Put your square inside this square, and then you win. And then you move on to the next level, and maybe it gets harder. I don't know. Okay, so let's get to the win square. Okay. The win square sounds completely abstract at this point. But, whatever. We're just going to keep feeling free and trying it out and trying to improve, right? If we say later, like, yeah, we tested this is really, like, weird. Well, that's new insight, and we have new needs. We need to make this less weird go, right? Let's find some new ideas and do it. Now, you see how this works? Well, this player promise starts like this. Hey, player, you're a square, and you can move up, down, left, right. You're a 2D square in a 2D world. And there's another square that you can move into. It's called win. So when they say, what am I trying to do? You say, well, you're trying to get into that square. And you can move up, down, left, right, so get there. All right. So that's how you win. Wait a minute. Didn't we forget something? Yes. Because there is a win condition, doesn't mean that it's a game yet. Literally, we need to ask the question, could you lose? And in this scenario, the answer is actually no. How do you lose that? I mean, you're a square here, and you can move around. There's the win square over here. Could you just stay here? Sure. Could you move in there? Yeah, you'd win. So it's like waiting to win is sort of where we're at, but that's not the same as lose. Like we want to say, player, you can lose. That's part of the promise. It doesn't seem like a player need, but literally this is one of the needs the player has. In fact, it's a requirement to be a game. You see where I'm going with this? To say the win and lose results are required for a game is to say, yeah, to be a game properly, a player engages this and says, oh, I might lose, and so I'm going to try and play better. Hi. I may have forgotten to pin this message, but we do have a command tie. And you know why? Because I have no idea. I'm going to ramble on until somebody wakes me up and lets me know you're here. Hey, welcome. Yes. We're not just making it a game. Actually, we have a game down below called Small Towers. You're welcome to play that one. That's one game we made. But we're just chatting about what it would be like to make a game from nothing. So yeah, I guess we're kind of trying to make a game. What we've discovered in our talk is that it's safe to just start. So we're just starting. And you're welcome to hang out, lurk, whatever you want to do. Appreciate you. All right. Let's say, hey, player, guess what? You get to be a square, and you can go up, down, left, right. Wow. It's not a game yet. Okay, but if you move into this square that we'll call win, then you win. Okay, is it a game yet? No, not yet, not yet, not yet, because we said you need to lose as well. We're going to have to solve this. Otherwise, this mod is player control. We can say check. They can move up, down, left, right. And those are some rules of the game they can agree to, but so far we have win, but we don't have lose yet. We can't quite check this off yet. This requirement for a game has not been met yet. So let's just keep going and let's see what we get. Let's see what we get. You can move around and get to the win. Great. So if you just sit here, could you lose? Well, I don't know. You could say there's like enemies, or there's hazards, or there's I don't know, maybe the win square shrinks and disappears, right? Or it moves away from you, and maybe the win square is like a thing you're chasing or something. And if it gets somewhere else before you can catch it, then you lose. Something like that, right? Okay, well, all those are ideas. Find all kinds of ideas to meet the need of lose. That's what we're doing. Let's prioritize to find the best idea. Well, okay, player, you're here. You see the win square, and you can move around. So among all those ideas, enemies? Oh, okay. Hazards? That sounds kind of cool, actually. The shrinking win square. That's pretty cool, actually. If it's really big, it would be easy to just jump into it. If it's smaller, it's harder to go get to it. There's a time limit on it, actually, if it's shrinking, right? I guess there would also be a time limit if it was like running around trying to get somewhere else. Among all those ideas about how to introduce lose, I can see less problems with the idea of a shrinking win square, or otherwise time-limited square of win, you know? There's a timer, basically. Hey, player, you're a square. You can move up, down, left, right. If you get to the win square in time, you win. Otherwise, you lose. Aha. I think we just we met that need. Let's test that theory. Okay, so 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3. Oh, you lost. Okay, we could lose. 1,000, 2, 1,000. Oh, I made it. Win. This could work. Now, I'm just putting my cursor on a, like putting my finger on a piece of paper to paper prototype the idea. But yeah, actually, that could work. What am I trying to do is one of the questions the player is asking, right? Hey, player's here and they're asking these questions. Who am I? Well, you're a square. Where am I? I don't know, some 2D land. Actually, we haven't really defined this at all. Maybe it doesn't need to be defined. Maybe square changes. I don't know. It's going to change, and that's good, right? What am I trying to do? Well, this is starting to take some shape. You can move up, down, left, right. And there is a square to go move to, so you can win. But that square has a time limit of some kind. So you have to get there kind of fast. Cool. We're getting there. Okay, so what am I trying to do is get to the win square in time. Because for some reason, this win square has a limit on the time. So just get there, right? If you can move around, right? Some player control. You're kind of also managing the time. Don't sit here, otherwise you'll lose, right? This, if you think about it, could also be good entertainment to say, boy, that would take a long time if they just sat there and nothing happened. Let's keep the pace up by making sure they either win or they lose in a relatively short period of time by putting a timer on it. That works. Now, what we're doing is kind of going through these steps of the design process to see, does this work? Does this not work? I mean, we actually did testing. Did you see that? We did it. We said 1,000, 2, 1,000. We pretended that we were moving the square. That was a test. It was a quick one. Paper prototypes are very fast. It's good. And we evaluated, could we imagine this square getting small, disappearing in a certain amount of time, and losing? If so, the test results could tell us, yes, that would work, or no, that won't work. I mean, in real ways, we also kind of tested in our head what it would be like if the square was like, running off somewhere else and we were trying to chase it. We imagined what it would be like to have like enemies around here, like shooting at us or, whatever, hazards or something. We said maybe some of that's cool. Right? But it helped us to say like, well, it looks like we might have the best idea, which is fairly simple. In fact, simple's not a bad idea. Check this out. We need the player to engage. This player designer contract is saying, hey, player, here's what is going on. The more complex these answers are, what you're trying to do, what's working for you, all that stuff, the harder it is for the player to accept the contract and start playing. The harder it is to follow what's happening as the game goes on, the harder it is to stay in this game loop. By keeping these things very simple, we are giving ourselves a better chance of encouraging players to start to begin with. Now, I know you've seen simple games before. This is kind of a very simple game. Who are you? Well, you're a square. You move up, down, left, right in a 2D world. What am I trying to do? You're trying to get to the win square. Cool, let's keep going, because I think we're starting to address all the needs we would need to make a game. In fact, don't we have a game yet? Well, sort of. The player is still going to ask these questions, but you know what? We have player control, a win and lose condition, and rules of the game that the player could agree on. You know what? We actually do have a game. Could you replay it? I think we need a little more definition on what happens next. But yeah, I mean, you could replay it, but you could also maybe continue the game, like we said, maybe levels or something. Win, lose. Could you tie? I don't know. I think the way we've set this game up, I don't think you could tie, but I don't know, could be wrong. Let's keep asking these questions. The player will ask, who am I? Where am I? This might evolve or change, but so far, square in a 2D flat world. Maybe it even looks like, white with a black square. Who knows, right? Yes, I am seeing the chat, but I don't normally look over here. That's the problem. Ariel, I'm sorry to be neglectful, but I am I look at chat infrequently because I'm either playing a game or we're making a game and I'm distracted. That's all. That's all. You're welcome to hang out. There is that game down below called Small Towers. If you're interested, there is a command. In fact, the whole game runs on chat commands. It's for chat. The bots are demoing the game, but they'll get out of the way if you want to play. Yes, I am seeing the chat, but I literally have to look over at my other device to read it. I know it's called just chatting, but I'm using this category to talk about game design. Yeah. It's weird, right? This cartoon ape in a jungle. Yeah, it's weird. Okay, I'm gonna get back to what I was doing though. I publish these videos, and you know how it goes. Welcome to hang out. Happy to answer questions. The answer to your question is yes, I am reading chat, just not immediately. If that makes sense. And yes, we are making a game. What we're trying to do is demonstrate what it would be like to try and make a game from nothing and use this process and trying to demonstrate this process, because this design chat series is about saying, yeah, you could do this too. So let's get back to it. I'm going to continue to read these. Hey, who am I? And we say, you're a square. Where am I? A flat space. Maybe like a page. What am I trying to do? Well, there's this win square. You're trying to jump in there. You can move around, so that's what you're trying to do, get there. The thing is, that square will, disappear after some time, so you have to get there. And I think shrinking is a good idea, because then the player could see that it's getting smaller. You have to get there quicker, That might clue them into the idea there's a time limit pretty quickly. I mean, I guess we could have like a timer or a progress bar that's going down or something else that lets them know about that time limit, but What do I have working for me is one of these questions, I think we've started to answer that because this game is so simple. This kind of just evolved straight from the player control. You can move. You have control over your little square. Do we need more than that? I don't know. I mean, maybe. Maybe early on in the game, that's all there is, and maybe later we give them other things to do, like teleport or dash or I don't know what, right? Things to work for me. Maybe you could slow down the way this win square shrinks down, so you have more time, It's things you could do with that time. That would be something that works for you, right? What else? What is working against me? These are questions the players ask every single game they are learning, and we better have a good answer. What is working against me? Well, in our case, the time is working against you. I mean, I don't know there's much else, actually. We've only been talking about a lose condition because the win square is gone. Okay. Should we think of more ideas to meet the needs? Yes, we should. The design process is, okay, well, we have an answer for that. And in evaluating just now, we just did a test. In evaluating that, we might say, that might be a pretty low challenge. Let's imagine this game right now. Like, okay, player, here you go. Boom, you are this square, go. And you see this shrinking, you just go, whoop, done. Yay, you won. Next level. It's the same thing. and it's the same thing. That would be really dull. We haven't talked about much of this yet, but it is safe to go back to the player's experience. And if you are imagining this player, you might say, yeah, is this all there is? If I understand that all I need to do is move to the right, get in the square, I'm done, then first of all, I get the player contract. I think I understand that. But this player game loop has started to wane for reasons like I have nothing else to learn. I understand all the rules of the game. There is win and lose. I have some player control, but is it really replayable if it's the same level over and over? It's a good question. We haven't talked about the attention management that is necessary in game design, but that's exactly what we're running into because we're asking the question. Given that this is, I'm here and I need to go there and I can move, now that I know I can do that, like if they win once, haven't they proven they can do that? The answer is yeah, actually. And they are going to ask, then what? In other words, we just did a little test again. We're kind of role-playing and pretending we're playing this game. And the evaluation is, man, that looks really limiting. Is that all there is? We now see a new need. The insight is, you know what? We need to ramp up some difficulty, maybe. We need to maybe match that with some new things for the player. These questions right here about what do I have working for me and what do I have working against me might be our key to ramping up difficulty and making it more interesting so they could lose a little bit easier. Right? Basically, it was super easy to win and frankly pretty hard to lose. You just had to sit there to lose, right? But if they win once, the next level, let's ramp this up so winning is harder, losing is easier. This is what players expect. They are learning machines and they need the next thing to learn. Otherwise, they're sort of, So if we introduce new things that are working for you, new things that are working against you, there's learning to do. Hopefully, what am I trying to do doesn't change very much because that might be beginning to break the contract. What I expected the game to be about is changing. Am I not a square anymore? Am I not in this flat world anymore? Am I not trying to get to that win square? Like, this is a different game, right? We want to be careful about that. But if these are the same, we could maybe adjust these. Yes, sir. Let's think about that. I assert we could have them just move over here and win level 1. But then maybe level 2. Let's put some, wall or something here they have to get around. And that actually takes time, which is working against them. Okay, cool. Maybe this goes faster and shrinks faster. Okay. Maybe, the wall moves or the floors that they can move on moves them around or something, or pushes them, or, there could be something they need to do to open a door to get to the win square. Actually, yeah, I can think of lots of things to get in the way of the player between here and there. Cool. First things first. If the most direct path from point A to point B is a straight line, we probably want to start it with a straight line, but pretty much never again. Never again a straight line, as every single level after that should be not a straight line, maybe, yeah? Okay. Hey, are we kind of making a game? Yeah, kind of making a game here. Well, how did this happen? Right? Is this still going to be a square? That sounds kind of dull. Like, should we make it some place that's interesting and blah, blah, blah? Valid questions, and maybe these are new needs that we should address. We should find the best idea, test it, and see how it works. And if it's better or if there's something else that needs to be improved, boom. Yeah. notice how we just started and we maintained this process and kept iterating on it and repeating this process. We came up with a number of things we had to do to make it a game. This is really simple, but yeah, it's a game. And we could say, yo, player, you're a square. I mean, it's not an exciting promise, but it's a promise. You can move up, down, left, right. And there's a win square. Go get it. I mean, yeah, that's a game. The win square shrinks, so you better get there fast. Doesn't that sound like a game? It's very, very, very simple. Absolutely. Let's imagine this going a little bit further. Let's say, yeah. Let's think about the levels of this game for a second. First of all, let's just assert, rules of the game are consistent for those first questions. So yeah, you are a square. This is, player, this is you. And your control literally is up, down, left, right. In fact, let's just call it, this is going to be WASD. Okay? Cool. Right? I mean, I think almost immediately we've, adopted pretty much every player on the planet. We say, this is you, you're a square, and you've got up, down, left, right control. Because this is really conventional. Might be boring, gotta be careful, but, easy to adopt. We say there is a win square, right? We'll call it win. I don't know how to dress it up really, but, a big banner that says win. Sounds fine. And, we'll color it pretty or I don't know what, right? But this is the object of the game. This is what you're trying to go do, right? If you can move here. But what is working for you and what is working against you? Well, partly it is your movement. Remember, our fancy word for what is working for you is affordances. Your affordance. Your affordances are to move, yeah? Fast. Move quickly, right? What's working against you, right? What are the challenges of this game as we're so far designing it? Well, it's time, really. Right? If this runs out of time, you cannot get to the win square because it's like gone. But you can move, and you can move fast. You can move immediately when the level starts. How about that? You see where to go. If you couldn't see where the win square was, that would actually be maybe not fun. But I don't know. Maybe it's a big challenge. Who knows? Move fast, right? That's what you can do. Get there, right? Time might run out, though, so don't wait, right? Cool. So level 1. I mean, the point of early levels is really to help solidify those answers to the questions the player asks. And so if we say level 1, you're here, win square is here, go. Okay. And, you win. Like, oop, done. And then we can just go to level 2. Now, wait a minute. Is that too simple? No, I mean, who cares? Like this, we might need to improve this, but let's keep going because what we're trying to discover and test is a new need. Now we have a win square, but you know what? We're going to put a big wall in front of it. And you have to get around the wall. In fact, we're going to put you a little bit further apart. Same amount of time. Go. And you actually have to go around. But then win. This wall now represents making it a little bit harder. That's all. Just a little bit harder. It's more difficult than the first level. Probably easier than the next one. Right? I don't know. I'm just making this up, but let's keep going. Can we have more difficult stuff here, right? What if there was a black hole, right? Right? And player was encouraged to go straight to the win thing, but they get too close to the black hole, and right, so they have to go way around, otherwise they're going to lose. They get sucked in, this will shrink, they lose. Right, the same rule about lose. Maybe this is introducing a lose state, which is like you could die inside the black hole, right? I mean, this could be a black hole, this could be fire, this could be lava, this could be spikes, this could be an enemy, who knows? So could we make it more difficult and solve one of the needs that we just found? The need being, do we have a lose state that ramps up a bit, right? Do we have a way to say, yeah, you have modest player control. This could remain stable. Maybe we give you some more controls, but it's going to be easier to lose, harder to win. If we explain these new rules for like the black hole or the wall or the enemies or the exploding barrels or whatever it is we do, if we explain the rules of the game as we go, the player will maintain their faith in the contract we've given them. Hey, you are a square, and you are in a 2D world trying to get to the win square. Go. This is maintained as long as we don't throw crazy stuff at it, like, well, now you are in, now you're an adventurer in a dungeon, here's a sword, and you have... That's not the game that I signed up for. What's going on? It would be harder for a player to maintain their faith in the promise, to maintain, their engagement in the game loop. So, what happened today? What happened today? What's going on? Well, today we had this design chat where we kind of reviewed some of the stuff we've talked about before. And we kind of glossed over the idea that we also dispelled some myths about what game design was. We did that last time. This time we said, well, let's do something with this. Let's take this knowledge that we should focus on what the player is experiencing. Let's use our design process and just start, because we should feel free that no matter what happens, we'll be able to improve it and get it closer and closer to what it was. Indeed, we had nothing at first. And then we had something, but it was lacking key components, like player control, like win and lose states. We have new needs that we identified. We thought of ways to address that need. We tested out what we had, found new needs, and kept going. And it was improving and improving. And actually, now we have the makings of a game. I mean, this is all just sketchy sketch on some piece of paper. Is this a game? Well, let's find out. Let's do a little research. Is this a game? Does it have modest player control? Yeah, you can move up, down, left, right. Tell the player WASD. Go for it. You can get to the win square. That's your player control. You know when you have the ability to get to the win square and when the win square is gone. That's enough of your control to do what you need to do so far. Could you win? Yeah, you get to that square that says win. That's how you win. Could you lose? Yeah, you could not get there in time and then it's gone and you can't win. And we will tell you you lost and maybe restart you on the same level. That sounds decent. Yeah. Those rules that we just outlined, player, are you cool with that? And if they say yes, boom, we got the game. because now we have a player and they're accepting these minimum requirements that we have. In fact, we even added replayable. You hear me do that? So we can tell the player, you know what, this is a simple game, but you are a square trying to get to the win square. Go. They might be down to play this because it's so simple. Who knows? As long as we don't break this loop, I think we're okay. So far, we're meeting all the requirements. As long as we tell them things like when the win square will disappear because it's shrinking or something, that sounds like a pretty good way to keep them in the loop. As long as we don't take away their controls, etc. So we're answering these questions. Cool. Okay, we're not asleep on this because it turns out this is not just our key to understanding how to make the game through the player experience, but we're also learning how to make it harder and harder and have a progression that is interesting and fun. Remind me later, we're going to talk about the tenets of design, including progression, variation, contrast, rhythm, and progression. All forms of design work off these. But let's get back to this. So today we said, let's look back at what we've been talking about and apply it. Let's use this process and start, because it's safe to start. We should feel free to start. And so we just did. Said, oh, let's do this. Now, is this the greatest game ever? Heck no. I mean, maybe. But it's not, right? It's too simple, but I still say it's a game. It absolutely is a game. We've done that. And not only that, we've thought about it a little bit further to say, this is how we can answer the questions about what the player is. And to that extent, we know the pieces of the game that would be necessary to build. Talking about our other series, Design Workshop, we could think about how could we implement all of this. A timer so the win square goes away. The ability to move up, down, left, right, and maybe introduce some things, right? How do we do pixel art or something to just at least give us a win square? How do we make this look like an interesting player character? The artwork, maybe sound. I mean, this is a design. And it's not just a design, it's a design that is already a game. It's already a game, and it will improve. It will improve as long as we don't stop. This process guarantees improvement. We just demonstrated that today. And we could just keep going and improve it more and more. Maybe we decide, a square is boring, and the need we're going to address is how to make the player character exciting. And so we come up with new ideas about what that square might change into to be better. We test them out. We find the better thing. Done. And we move on. It might look completely different after we keep iterating on it and improving it. But it has to start, and we have to keep doing that process. After we agree to that and we just commit to doing this process, we should feel free to start. Anyone can do this. Anyone can design a game. All right. Did I make the point? Did we do the thing? Did we do a little bit? Okay. What's up, bots? Our bots are playing Small Towers. And like the nerd I am, I appreciate looking at the stats. Because they've been just playtesting the game, and what I'm interested in is how they've been playing. They're really not supposed to be challenging players to play against, but I would like them to at least show off all the parts of the game. So when I do this, I'm looking at the distribution of the things they've done. They did make a tower, that one tower there, I guess. They've upgraded a couple of times. That's cool. They have recruited wizards and cast spells. Excellent. That is good. These are the three things that I keep looking at because that's the last step I've been, well, tuning their AI to perform. This game is basically done. It is done. I'm feeling good about the tuning, and we're moving on. That's why, the software development stream and this just chatting stream are now used to do new stuff. We're talking about design, game design, so that we can say, you can do it too. Let's demystify what it is, because it's not voodoo, it's not magic, it's not beyond your control, it's not mysterious, it's this. And we dispel some of the myths about it, so you don't get the wrong idea, but then we tell you what it is, and today we demonstrated how you can do it too. That's what we did today. We're here in a jungle. This cartoon ape loves to make games, like the one down below. We love to make the other game that we're making called Shuffle Wars. That's called Shuffle Wars. Here we go. It's a silly name for a battle card game. We haven't really shown that game on this channel in a while. It doesn't look like much, and that's why the efforts we've been doing on Shuffle Wars are to make art, because we need to really shore up that player promise. Oof. That's what we're working on for Shuffle Wars. The player promise is absolutely blank. It doesn't make sense to players. That's why it's too hard. We're working on artwork. That's what we're doing. Anyway, this cartoon ape is in a jungle making games, playing games, and invites you to do the same. So if you are interested in that, follow and be notified. And when you show up on stream, please, please, please do me one favor. When you show up on stream, please do Command Tie. Command Tie lets me know when you are here. If you're upset that I'm not paying attention to you, well, I apologize, but I'm not being a jerk. I literally don't see. I'm focused on something else. But if you do Command Tie, boom, totally know you're here. And I say, hey, you're here. That's how that works. In the meantime, have fun. Do well, be good, stay safe. See ya.